Hey, first run through of the WAZI application of the new year. Um, I'm gonna one shot this, so maybe it might be a bit of a long video, but I'll go through it all. So as you register first time, let me open a guest profile to show you what it looks like for anyone who is not already registered. There's a login process when you're not logged in, and a register journey if you wish to apply for WAZI. All that's been it's been built for any unregistered, unlogged in user. With your credentials, and again, we are operating on a sandbox environment at the moment. So with your not for example, the mailer functionality, sending email notifications, not working. So in the dev environment, you can use any email to play around. The emails will not actually go to the email addresses that you're using. They will go to DataStack admin, meaning that you may not, on the dev environment, complete all the flows that involve email send-outs, but they are all functional. So in the admin panel, this is where you administer the application. What's important to note, so we made a few fixes. You can monitor user activities, quite standard stuff. An important thing to realize here is the way we do role-based account management. It's decomposed into accounts, which are basically organizations, such as Mwamba Mining or the test environment that we've created, and users, which are members of said organization. So as you can see, I've created Thomas, actually while we were on the call, and Ed is here. In the dev environment, this creation again involves a flow of emails, invitation, confirmation, approval, etc., which are not necessarily the easiest flows to test until we go live. Why the separation? Well, inside each account, as the administrator of the application, you can actually manage users on behalf of the account admins, although it should be the responsibility of each individual account administrator to do so. Here you can create accounts, so new organization, type of accounts. So there's going to be aggregator, which is a standard interface, the same used by Mwamba. You could also create an operator account, which is a simplified one where they could apply rather than onboard. One for upstream supply chain actors. It could take, the name could change. There could be multiple sub interfaces for upstream actors depending on how they are. But each of these interfaces is designed to provide different utility to different types of users. We can also think of one for what we call monitor for third parties such as auditors or civil society. And partner generally qualifies, is going to be for interfaces for receivers of information. So they may not create much data, although they could. They will mostly be your buyers, your investors, other stakeholders. But at the moment, as per MVP objectives, we're focusing on the aggregator interface. And indeed, an aggregator account can be created from the administrative panel. In the user section, so of course you will have all the users contained in including each of the accounts. But that interface will allow you, when there's a lot of users, to see them all in one place. Perhaps to understand why an email is not functioning, uh, directly send a password reset link to a user, check which is pending. So there must have been sub-users created in the test environment that are pending. The email has been verified, but they have not been accepted by their account admin. So in the user section, you really manage users at large. Important point is that you can impersonate at this point, you can impersonate each and every user, which of course, when the application does become a commercial product, it's probably going to come with some limitation as to what information you can access. And of course, until such time when WAZI is under the control of Mwamba, would attract some scrutiny and questions from users. Long term, it's obviously not the goal that you can impersonate every user, but at this point you can. Subjects here is where you're going to be managing data. So I'm talking about all data contained in the app. As you can see, locations here, mine one, created by test environment one, stakeholder, Mwamba mining stakeholder has been created by Mwamba. So some amount of these informations might be created or generated, identified by multiple users. What you're going to be able to do here is to review all the data that's created in the system. It quickly goes very fast. It expands very quickly. Now the application is empty. And perhaps edit core information related to this. Maybe those core data identifying those subjects has not been set up properly. Or what you can do is also, I think, delete. I don't know if you can do it already. Yeah, delete. So you might delete a subject or information that was created by users by accident. And even more importantly, for the long term, merge. So you might identify two stakeholders and think that they are the same, that two users called them differently or located them differently, but they are actually the same. So WAZI, and that's quite a crazy feature from the DataStack environment, allows you to merge subjects, meaning that the data that one user has provided on the subject and the data that another user has provided on what you think is the same subject, you're going to be able to merge those two subjects and identify that they're actually talking about the same subject. There are tricks and ways for the application to understand and guess that two users are talking about the same thing, but sometimes it may not, and so the admin, it may not pick it up, and so the administrator of the application will have the opportunity to manually merge two subjects. Long term, if you care to know, long term will obviously be working a lot on automated merging, automated reconciliation of data across different users so that your systems can know when multiple sources exist of the same information. Massive strategic value add from the DataStack framework. So I'm going to go and impersonate Ed or any Mwamba user. So to be clear, Ed and Thomas here access the same interface, the same account, because they are both included in Mwamba mining. I'm going to check that immediately. So both are here. Ed is the administrator of the account. Tom is a custodian, meaning has access to all edit, save, information sharing functionalities. It could be switched. The other type of user is editor. You can save, compile data, save information, but you cannot share it. You cannot publish it. You cannot invite a new client for information. You cannot invite a new source of information. Only custodians and the administrator can do that. And then there's, of course, viewer, where it's view only. You cannot add data. You can enter the Mwamba account, but only as viewer. Anyway, these are long-term tool scalability tools. So I'm impersonate Ed. Ed, as the administrator at the moment of the Mwamba account, you can, by the way, transfer admin rights, I think. Only the administrator of the application can transfer admin rights to Tom if needed. As an administrator, you can edit the permissions of Tom if you don't want it to be a custodian anymore and you'd rather have an editor only. All of this functionalities for user management have been tested. There's a few email flows that we're testing, email text that are still sometimes a bit confusing, but all of this has been built as part of core infrastructure. You can add users. I don't think there's a limit, maybe 20 or something on the number of users that you can have inside each organization, but that's just a technicality. The cap can be edited. So again, I am in the account of Mwamba and the user management is here. Partners management is where you're going to invite. It's a broad terminology for now. It might be different, but it's where you're going to manage who has access to your data. And it might be access to your entire data, access to certain parts of your data. The partners section is a front-end representation of this intricate information sharing that we build in every app. So you might create a partnership with an information source that you would invite to WAZI, with a client, an information client. Could be a buyer of materials, but it could also be another stakeholder that you would invite to WAZI, or an exchange where we're going to agree to exchange information following certain criteria. Might be an organization or an individual, and they might be invited by email. If they're already users of WAZI, you could also invite them as partner by using their application ID. This is a reminder that any user of WAZI by default would not share information with Mwamba unless they agree to create such type of partnership. I think that you can find your application ID here. No, it should be here, but yeah, it's here. This is the ID that you would use to invite an existing user. I took the liberty to update this logo, but you can edit it yourself if you so desire. The few notification settings are still being worked through security settings, very standard stuff. You can edit your admin password from here. That's user management settings, and of course you can log out from here. So that's core infrastructure being developed. Then a new application comes with a dashboard. So at the moment, this dashboard is focused on key functionalities. So going to quick action button to go and create an activity, for example, or create a mine site or whatever. Find information. You might, it's not going to be immediately relevant, but this is where we will connect all information that's available on the application, the holders of that information. And if you find that one of the users of your application has information that you might be interested in somewhere in the country or elsewhere, and that information has not been shared with you, this is where you're going to be able to seek that user's collaboration and ask them if they want to share information with you. So search engine within the application. Importantly, we will expand the functionalities of this search engine so that you can search data that is held by users of other data stake applications. That's for a different topic. In channels is where you're going to be managing, reviewing, monitoring all the information that you might be sharing or receiving by and from different organizations. So these are information sharing channels. These are really data stake features, functionalities, add-ons that you may not concern yourself too much with. Share information just takes you to the partners section. Now, this dashboard is obviously very simplified, basic, and can be customized to what you want to see first when you land in your interface as an aggregator. And whether you have the aggregator interface or a monitor interface or partner, buyer, operator, etc., whatever interface you might be using could have a customized dashboard. So you might want your latest activities. You might want a mapping of incidents on a map. You might want to see different types of timelines or diagrams based on the data that is collected across your app. The dashboard can be customized. But I'm showcasing it right now to discuss some functionalities. So you have the data compilation functionalities. It's just tracking in terms of locations, stakeholders, and events, how much data, how many subjects of information were produced in the last week, in the last day. I just created Mwamba as a stakeholder when we created Mwamba as a stakeholder when we refreshed the application. The contributors of this information, in this case, it's only Ed, the logged in account of Ed that contributed this one subject, this one stakeholder, which is Mwamba itself, and information sharing, which is the status of your information. So have you already submitted it, as we call it, and shared it with partners, created a version for it, or is all the information private, which is obviously the case at the moment. 100% of the one subject you created is still private. Besides counting subjects that you've created and performance of every user in their creation, you can also monitor data points. So we have 4 data points related to Mamba that have been created by Ed, none of which has been shared. And beside data compilation, you will have access to data consolidation. So this is when other organizations are sharing information with you with triangulation, allowing you to identify per subject or even per data point what is the percentage of your data that has been triangulated. And the contributions, instead of being individuals, as is the case within your organization, are going to be displayed by the organization, the names of the organizations that are contributing information to you. The data chain of custody, again, not immediately relevant to Mamba, but an important feature to monitor is that anytime you're going to have new information sources, they're going to be displayed here. Anytime you're going to be sharing your information with new clients, they're going to be displayed on the right side, meaning that you can at all time have a look into who are the organizations or systems that you are sharing information with or receiving information from. I will navigate out of the, or maybe I'll dive into quickly into the self-assessment flow, which is where you would complete. I showed that on the call we had, where you would complete your KYC. So this is a standard KYC form. I'll touch on this a bit. You will complete, and this form has not been added to the sandbox environment yet, but you could complete a self-assessment of your management systems. You will identify operating sites in the KYC. That comes in the section on operations. When you identify processing plants, mining sites, they will be added to your operating sites here, and you can then complete the forms related to them. And all associated information is progressively going to be displayed here. So that's your self-assessment module being built, but of course will be expanded with in-depth analytics based on the data that you've provided. I'll log off Mwamba because now I might compile some data and I don't want to pollute the Mwamba user. So I'm going to log in as the test user. We also cleared the data for the test user, so there's not much to see other than a couple of mines that I created earlier today. But I'm going to use that one to showcase more functionalities. So first, it also has its own self-assessment. I will show you what I did on the call, which is what as you create operating sites. So I'm going to create another one. Yeah, you need to, when you are in a form, by the way, you have a couple of buttons here. Here's to edit, here's to submit. So it's to create a version where you are confident you want to create a historic record of your information, or you want to share it with others. Any partner that you've set up, you would click submit. Only the custodians and the administrator of the account can press submit. The editors cannot. And here you would navigate from your version of the information to the version of the information created by another account, by an information source. So you might visualize your own KYC based on your information or based on the information provided by another actor. And this kind of form logic is going to apply to every form across the applications. Here you can access records for different sources and different versions of their information. Navigate to a historic version. And you can access the summary of your form, which is the analytics derived from your form. Going back to the form, most important button I wanted to talk about is edit. So there's nothing you can do inside this form right now because it's in view mode. You have to enter edit if you want to edit any piece of information. Here is non-editable because this is core data identifying the subject test env, identifying the aggregator. It can be updated, but only by the administrator of the application. Down the line, users are going to be able to edit this type of information, but it has a lot of ramification on the back end, especially in terms of reconciling information subjects, linking information subjects with each other. So for now, the core data is uneditable, but test and limited, I can already go through the process of completing my KYC form. I can add an address. My country is has been set at the time of my registration, which is why it's not editable. If from Mwamba it's been set for Tanzania, but of course if you need to change the country, we can discuss that. And you can identify any place, any village, town, city where your organization is registered. If that place already exists in the system, it will come out as a drop-down for you to select it. If it doesn't exist, which in the province of Sankuru, territory Kole, as a village, there is no location existing in the system. Let me see if I delete everything. Yeah, these are pre-selectors that allow you to narrow down on locations that will be displayed in the drop-down. So in Kalemi, Tanganyika, as a village, there's nothing. So I'm going to create a new one, new village, where I am registered. This is how you just created a new information subject, not only on your account, but in the entire application, which no user has created yet. This map takes you directly in the province and sub-region that you've identified, and you can locate your headquarters. Let's put them right in Kalemi. Save, and you are done creating your primary location. As you save, that primary location is now a location on the system called New Village. I should have called it Kalemi really. And if you go inside all information, that location, New Village, now exists as a location with its own form where you might provide extra information going forward. We have not expanded the form for villages just yet, but you could be doing that in the future. Going back to self-assessment, now your completion has gone up to 12%. I didn't check, but I think it's gone up. Just from provided this information, you can continue your edit. Other shareholders, yes. Other direct beneficiaries, yes. I'll get back to this one because it's important. Bunch of questions have been created here based on discussions with partners, based on historic observations, and could be expanded. This form is obviously flexible. We're going to work on Excel spreadsheets so that you can have a full view of the form. But there's a lot of intricate logic built in there, conditional questions, pop-ups, questions that only, of course, skip logic, questions that only come up once you've answered to the previous questions. Multiple options have been built in. So not everything is going to be easy to showcase on the on a form, on an Excel document. That's why software can be so useful. So I invite you to go through your KYC, note down the things that might be missing, the things where you don't feel comfortable, or the ideas that you think have been left out. All these sections will become standard for every stakeholder. These sections are going to be more industry related, so operations, trade, organization policies are going to be dependent on the type of stakeholder that is being assessed. So right now, as an aggregator on WAZI, I am my economic sector is mining and metals. Therefore, the operations and trade sections will appear as they are now. So I invite you to test that, try and fill it up. Please don't forget that even if you complete it in the Mwamba section, we are in the Mwamba account. We are in the sandbox environment, so there remains a risk that data may have to be wiped out at some point for big refactoring or things like this. So do complete it, test it, play with it, but I cannot guarantee that the information in there will be necessarily final. You might lose some data in the sandbox environment. We can try not to, but that's the benefit of a sandbox, that we can really change information structure without too much risk for user data. Little UX, missing input tells you where you're missing information inside your form in edit mode. Here is a quick and easy button to say that this is not applicable to me. You can use that for every piece of information on the every data point on the application. But we might decide going forward that a user cannot use not applicable for this question. So by default, right now, it's applicable everywhere. No available information, same, except in the calculation of information completion, it's going to count different from not applicable, but it's the same kind of logic. It's like, I don't have available information on this. This allows you to differentiate a question that has not been responded to and one where that you have seen and you know that there is no available information. Again, quite a lot of many years of thinking has gone into these UX. And you can add for each data point. You should be able to add, it's not functioning. Here's a bug. You should be able to add comments, metadata, which is going to be fixed as soon as I finish this call, but is basically for each data point, allows you to add a comment below the main data point. That also can be activated or deactivated at will. When you are in, no, I want to save my changes after all. When you are in view mode, you will have, it's not implemented at this moment, but you will see on our smartphones, you will see versions of a data point, and you will be able to consult what other sources are saying for individual data points. So instead of navigating from your entire form to the entire form of someone else, you might see for each data point what others are saying. There's currently no sources, no historic records, so you don't see that. And here's where you should be visualizing comments when they exist and when they can be completed for every data point. So another important topic is data linking. As we touched on with the production site, you might want to add a shareholder, to your own organization, which might be any type of corporation, new shareholder. And this is important because you are now creating a beneficiary, which may be subject down the line, may be subject to its own KYC. So new shareholder LLC. Name would be the system name, the quick name, the name you want to see displayed, full name, new shareholder LLC. If you want to use the same name for both, you absolutely can. Political exposure, let's say yes. They are members of parliament and they hold 50% of our organization. Created your first shareholder. And now if I go to my summary of my KYC, I don't have trade relationships yet, but I have a new shareholder that I called new shareholder from China. And the same is going to be happening with the display of, do I have my holding? No, my holding 50% is not working. The same is going to be happening for, you're going to be visualizing your beneficiaries, your board members, your management, etc. So that's your self-assessment module. As you continue the completion of your KYC, the operating sites that you have identified will be showcased here, and the associated parties should be showcased here. I think I should be seeing my shareholders here as associated information. I will double check on that. So that's your self-assessment. From each of the mine sites or operating sites that you identify, you can of course access their own summary, their own form, and complete information about these mines. But besides self-assessing, you might create, even outside your self-assessment, you might create any operator directly. This is counterparties or operators. You might create it directly from the operators section on the sidebar. I'm going to create another one, another guy. it's a new subject. If I had created new guys, it would have, the application would have warned me that this already exists, and it's going to be an in-country trader. I've created yet another subject in my table of operators, another subject that I can now access, meaning that I can now complete information on. I can go also directly to production sites. Some production sites may not be my own production sites. They might be processing plants of someone else or mine site of someone else. So I can go and create a production site directly from here. I may also create a production site by going to complete information on this stakeholder and saying that, for example, this stakeholder has operating sites, or I'm going to use another use case here that this organization, another guy is sourcing directly from mine site, yes, and I'm going to create the mine size of direct procurement from that organization. So let's say Tanzania, Geta, name of the location, new mine of origin. It's a new subject. I'm going to say that I'm just trading, I'm just buying as a trader, and I'm buying, let's say, 3 kilos daily. Or that's going a bit too far, too much information. Now I've created the mine sites of procurement. As a trader, I am procuring from, another guy is procuring from this new mine site. As I say, the mine site, new mine of origin gets created. The trade relationship between another guy and new mine of origin gets recorded. Gold, 3 kilos daily. Another guy is recognized as an in-country trader buying from this mine sites. We didn't create stakeholders, beneficiaries for another guy, I believe. And as I go to my production sites list, new mine of origin now exists. And it doesn't, we have not identified the operator. We have identified the local trader, but we didn't call it an operator. So if I go to new mine of origin and I go to operations, I could actually be identifying, sorry, to stakeholders. I could actually identify the operator here. So let's create an operator. Do I have operators in Tanzania already? Not yet. I'm going to go to Albania to see if I can link it to an existing, an existing subject. Albania Mafia Limited, form of remuneration, gold is pre-selected here, by the way, but of course you could use this application to for any sort of other product. Gonna save, and now my mine of origin, if I go back to my table, now my mine of origin is as an operator. If I go to the summary of this mine of origin, Albania Mafia is an operator, another guy is a trader noted at this mine. This is, of course, not sufficient to qualify as a due diligence system, but in terms of information management system that is modular and can scale in any form of direction with any form of sources of information, any form of calculations, any form of connection between data and analysis. A lot of work has been done here and continues to be done. It's been quite a journey. It's uncovered. Doing this has uncovered a lot of little things that we've had to fix over time. But I feel pretty confident. As you've seen, there's a couple of bugs here and there, but nothing really major. I feel pretty confident with the robustness of the information infrastructure we've put together. So beside production sites, you might record workers at each site. You might record shipments from each site. So we'll touch on that. And you might even create stakeholders, locations, events directly from this all information section which is really where all data is going to be accumulated. So not all locations are production size. So if you create a production size, it's going to be added to your location. But this is basically your data bank accumulating in all information. As I touched on in the call, so I really invite you to, maybe you can use the test environment or you can use Mwamba directly. But I really invite you to test the self-assessment flow, process, questions, see how you feel about this one. Perhaps if you want to try, you can try recording new activities and incidents. There's also quite a comprehensive form that's been built. So new advocacy for recording data on events and activities, associated risk type, stakeholder engagement. I should check something here. You can create an initiative that is supporting an activity. You should be able to create the location of this activity. I'll look into that. There's a few bugs in the forms, as you can tell. It's a bit frustrating, actually. But by Monday, this will be addressed. You can create activities, incidents, testimonials. What I mean by that is that the data structure is there. So all the data can be completed. Now it's a matter of ironing out what goes inside each of these forms. I've skipped location, but yeah. What goes inside each of these forms. So I'll send the content by in a spreadsheet. But what goes inside all of these forms is where your contribution will be welcome. Like to understand why? No. And from our sides, we will continue working beside the few bugs that I've seen here. We will continue to work on the expanded analysis. So as you could see right now, this is where you're going to navigate directly to your entire list of mines and operators and review their analytics just by selecting here rather than going through individual sites and operators. And this is where you're going to be visualizing all trade relationship. So at the moment, it's very limited. I don't think mines are here. This mine should be here. Why is it not showcased here? This mine near Manono should be there. The mines should be all showcased in the supply chain, but maybe only the mines that have an operator are showcased on the supply chain map. This is where you're going to visualize trade relationships in general between all the subjects that you've been creating. And as I touched on the call, very, very important next functionalities that we're working on is expanded analysis, scoring of the aggregator, and the scoring of any stakeholder, expanding a little bit the analysis component for each of these stakeholders. So instead of being just information contributions, trade relationships, and governance, the summary of a stakeholder would include, so this is a standard stakeholder without trade relationships, but no, this is a standard stakeholder without trade relationships. This is a stakeholder with trade relationships. So it would include checks on the data that is provided and scoring mechanisms for all these checks so that you can get on a counterparty score for every one of your counterparties or for Mwamba itself. Same thing for mine sites based on the data. So this is the new format, the final format of the mine site for MVP. Based on the data that's provided for each mine, automatically, algorithmically, calculation would be checks would be made, and a calculation, a scoring, rating of this mine would come from this. Meaning now for each mine and every counterparty, you would have a score. What that leads to, and that is the final piece of quote-unquote due diligence system, is the creation of those supply opportunities that we talked about. based on the scoring of each mine, scoring of each location, the scoring of each counterparty. How do you correlate this to Mwamba procurement? So this is where we create the subject supply profile, which will be featured in onboarding. And I've introduced that at some length during the call, and it's not immediately usable, but that's what we'll be working on right now so that you can get to a supply profile summary, aggregating the scoring of all your mines, all your suppliers and beneficiaries so that you can make a decision based on the score. You can make a decision as to whether or not you should approve them as suppliers. This is where really details will matter. We will not get to we're trying to get the product to a stage where it can stand the test of stakeholder consultation. But obviously, once you open this up to stakeholder consultation, you will see a lot of feedback coming on what should be contained, what should be the criteria to be monitored. Is it sufficient enough? You will have as much feedback as there are experts in the field. What else on the shipment side of things? I know it's even from our perspective, it's a bit less urgent, but it's how you link. This is how you're going to be linking shipment to a supply profile. So transposing risk to an individual shipment. It's not the hardest thing to do to create shipments. So long as until we create a mass balance process between inputs and outputs, which we don't have to do immediately. But you basically create a new inbound shipment or a new outbound shipment, and you decide what mines are related to an inbound, what supply profile, sorry, is related to an inbound, and you can decide on the outbound by default that your entire value chain is connected to that shipment, meaning that when you send information to a buyer, a client, they might receive information, the due diligence information related to your entire value chain. So the goal will be for MVP in particular would be that a partner interface exists. So that would be your client. Your client receives, every time there's a shipment, receives a notification that a shipment due diligence summary is ready, and they would receive, it would be called inbound on their side, but they would receive a shipment summary that looks a bit like this, with information on the mines of origin, the supply profile related to that shipment, and access from here, access to information on all the counterparties associated with that shipment, and a supply chain compliance score for that related to that shipment. So that's the finality of the MVP. We're not there yet, obviously, but I think that creating the shipment interface itself wouldn't take too long. Linking all the data together so that the supply profile is ready and links into a shipment might take a little bit longer. But we're talking February, March for this. And we also started work on production records, but in a very simplified way, how to record at each mine and at the plants, whether it is mining or processing. Record daily, weekly, monthly, or ad hoc anytime production information so that this information gets stored over time. But there's a lot that could be done to turn this into more than just a plausibility check, but then we are entering ERP territory. So getting back to WAZI, by all means, whether you want to do it in the test environment to enter random data or directly in the Mwamba account, please start by testing the self-assessment, complete the KYC, and then as you create operating sites, see if you are interested in completing information about those sites and basically get to a stage where your site summary and your KYC reach the highest possible information completeness. See if your stakeholder mappings are functioning correctly. You can see also if your operator summary is functioning correctly, if the trade relationships are disclosing properly, etc., etc. Always available if you have any questions.